Back to the police officers, real quick. You guys shared where you grew up here in Chicago, the Chicagoland area. Um, can you describe briefly what your community was like when you were a kid growing up?
Okay, so I grew up in the South Shore area. To be exact, 75th and Kingston. I don't know if any of you know about that area. I'm not sure how it is now, but when I was growing up there, um, it was gangs, drugs. My mother actually witnessed someone get shot, and it wasn't the best place to grow up. Um, I always wanted more, but due to the circumstances, we just didn't have, you know. So I grew up there, and then I moved to 109th and Eberhard. That's over there by Corliss High School, and it was a little bit better in that area at that time. But it's a lot different now than it used to be. That was back in like the 90s. Right now, it's just so much hatred and just turmoil everywhere you go. But like the scholars were saying, you know, you have to be better and do better. You gotta abide the rules, you know, hang out with good people. Don't surround yourself with people you know are doing wrong. And of course, that'll make our jobs easier. And we don't want to see you in that position. We want to see good things from you. So, yeah, that's how I grew up. But you don't have to be a product of your environment. You can make a change.
Let's see. Well, the neighborhood I grew up in was mostly middle class, and the one constant was family. Every household was an intact family. And that was a big one. And everyone was kind of knew each other's business. Not a lot, but just enough through gossip and stuff like that. So everyone didn't want to embarrass themselves or their family, so they kept out of some odd stuff on the side. So as far as that goes, let's see, we did have drugs in the area. I mean, I remember one drug dealer we had, and I'm just being truthful. Just being truthful. And we had him, and what's weird is that he had a sense of community himself, because he would only let marijuana in, but he wouldn't let heroin or crack come into the neighborhood. Yeah. Yeah, so we didn't have any issues or any violence that came into the neighborhood because of that. So it's just how it is. But it was a nice neighborhood. It still is. You know, the demographics shifted from mostly white, and then now it's mostly Hispanic. And again, the thing I see when I go visit my parents is the families, the intact families. And even though the demographics changed, the feeling of how everyone acts is the same. Everyone kind of keeps everyone kind of in line as far as, you know, the gossip and keeping yourself where you don't want to embarrass your family or yourself. That's a big thing. So it doesn't matter what race is in a neighborhood. The constant I see is families. That's what it is that makes a good neighborhood. That's a big one.
I grew up in three different areas, 79th and Yates, 75th and Winchester, and lastly by 87th and St. Lawrence. It was a different time because the gangs had more structure, because you had Larry Hoover and Jeff Fort. When they were cut off, you have what you have now. Grandparents were older, and they enjoyed and took pleasure in disciplining you if you get out of line, and they were very observant as to make sure that you didn't get out of line. You did not have talking back to your parents or grandparents. That just did not happen. Education was the model. Entertainment and music was bad, but it wasn't as it is now. It was just some things that weren't tolerated. I had to sneak to listen to certain stuff and watch stuff. But now you got the internet and all of that, so it's totally different. My father was a Cook County sheriff, and my mother was a teacher, so I couldn't go outside until I did these tests. She had me do these tests, and I could not go outside until I did the test. And my father was just a stern disciplinarian, so I didn't get in any trouble. And so that's what I experienced growing up.
Thank you so very much. Real quick, I do want to ask you, and again, so if you could be concise, that's good to help us with time. But growing up in the respective areas that you grew up in, what were the police like from your experience as a youth and a teen? Anyone, all of you.
Okay. So I grew up in the 9th district. So a lot of the time.
Can you share with us what the 9th district is?
So the 9th district is on the other side. So I lived at like 47th and Kedzie is where I lived. So a lot of the times the officers, they kind of knew who was in what, so they didn't really bother you if you weren't in it, into whatever was going negative in the community. But a lot of times, I do remember one time where this is what is funny, the relationship between police and kids in the neighborhood. So it was Halloween, and I guess we were like throwing eggs at people's houses. So the officers were running, and so some kid just dumped all his eggs so he can run faster. And so then the officer stopped, popped the trunk, put the eggs in the trunk, and then later on when he saw us all walking, they started throwing the eggs at us. So it's kind of like, but I think when we were kids, the officers pretty much know who's were involved in what, wasn't, kind of what the community wanted to. And so I wasn't really involved in all that kind of stuff. So again, my parents were strict also. I went to Catholic school, so I didn't really run around too much, but yeah. And so my neighborhood was kind of mixed too. I'm Puerto Rican and Polish. So, my neighborhood was predominantly Polish, and then, Hispanic people started moving in. So, I just want to note this. A lot of times what happens on the job is that when you're responding to something, all of us have different backgrounds. You don't know our backgrounds. And I think a lot of times they think that we're this one person. But they don't know our backgrounds. Here's 4 of us, totally different backgrounds, and we're coming with our backgrounds to the situation. You know what I mean? And I think a lot of times the community just thinks that we're just one person and we're all like machines or robots is what I like to say a lot of times. And all of us are different people. Just like if you want us, when we come to a call or something, you don't want us to judge you, then don't judge us. When we come to a situation, don't take the past of, last night I called this officer and he did this. That was last night. I'm here. Let's talk about this now. So that's the thing I think a lot of times the community just sometimes can't get over the hump of my past experience, my last traffic stop. Well, that was your last traffic stop. Let's talk about this traffic stop, or let's talk about this call and why we're here. And I think that's a lot of times where the communities just sometimes can't get over, where they're like, well, I had experiences with this, this, and this. Well, let's forget about that. Mm-hmm. Let's not bring that here, because now it's altering what we're going to experience. So that's that.
Thank you. Anyone?
The only experience that I had was the school officer. They had truant officers then. So it was different, but they had more respect, and they were more in tune with the community as well. Mm-hmm. So that I remember that.
Okay.
The officers over where I was at, and it was like I was saying, it's the east side. I don't know if you guys know the area around Midway Airport, but I lived a little bit more east of it. So I'm going to say probably about 60th. You okay? Okay. 60th and Costner. And that's the 8th district. And the police over there, they really they're pretty hard as far as police in the area. They did keep it up. I do remember one time, I'm not going to tell you what exactly happened, but I was running from the police with my friends. And they caught the slow kid. So we had to give up because he was going to tell on all of us. So I got brought over to the most senior officer. There were probably about 6 officers there. They were involved in the chase and all that. So I go over to the most senior, and he's taking down everyone's name, and I wouldn't give him my name. I don't know why, but I wouldn't give it to him. He hit me so hard that I had snot fly out, and it wouldn't stop coming out. Now, mind you, I didn't have a cold that day, and so and then he goes, you want to tell me your name again? And I said it so fast that he told me to shut up and slow down. And he did this because I ruined the shoe shine that he just got before he came to work. From then, and here's the funny thing. I wound up running into him. Actually, probably about 14 years, not 14 years later. I was on the job, and I ran into him. And I said, listen, were you there? Were you in the 8th District? Was this your beat? And do you remember wailing on a kid? And he goes, yeah, I kind of hit a lot of people. And I said, do you remember me? And he goes, I don't remember you in particular, but I know you probably deserved it. And then he invited me to his retirement party. So there you go.
There you go. How old were you?
When it happened,
Yeah.
let's see, I was probably about 11. Wow. Yeah, 11. So, yeah.
Officer Cochran?
I didn't have any experiences with the police when I was.
No, I mean just in an area, in a community. I mean, when you were a kid, what was the presence like for you?
I just really can't recall, and I'm not gonna sit here and make anything up.
Okay.
I don't remember. I was a good kid.
Good for you. Good for you. The one scholars, the one question I had, Officer Samars.
Yes.
She mentioned, referencing, would you call the police if you were in immediate danger, immediate need in the community? Would your reaction be to call on the police to aid you, to assist you in any way if you needed their service? Please share with us.
I say yes because I feel like that's what they're here for. But I feel like it depends on like she was saying, if you have had negative experience with the police, because like that like makes you feel type of way like, oh, this happened and they didn't help me. It's like, why would they help me now? But me, I've only had positive experiences with police, so I fully trust them. So of course I would call them.
If I'm being honest, I would probably call like a family member first, like my mom or my dad, anybody like that. Cause I feel like sometimes I get scared sometimes, like if you tell somebody something and like you don't know because like it's so dangerous out here. Cause if you tell somebody something you don't know, like probably like months later you're probably gonna get shot or something. So like most of the time I just like probably call a family member.
I'll be totally 100 with you. I'll be totally honest with you.
Sure.
Maybe, but at the same time, maybe not. Because I don't do good in fast situations. When a lot of stuff is happening and is like, it's a real deep situation and I gotta make a choice like that, I don't know what I would do because I don't do good in them. I don't know what I would do. I don't do good in them situations. No, I don't know.
So you're not really sure if you would call on them if you needed their support, their help, for them to serve and protect.
I don't know. I would have to say it depends on what situation it was. It depends on what situation it was. Because for some situations, my mind would exactly go to grab my phone and call whoever on speed dial. But other situations, it'd be, because I like to be independent. Okay, I can't do this myself. I got this.
Right.
So, yeah, I don't know.
Okay.
like he said, it depends on the situation. So this is what they're here for, to protect. So if that type of situation, yeah, I'll call them. And if it's like a different type of situation, I'll call my family.
Okay. A question I guess I want to ask the entire panel here, from your respective perspectives, with the scholars first. What's your level of trust as far as the community is concerned? What's the level of trust toward the police officers, and for the police officers, do you feel a sense of trust in the community when you're out there? We'll start with the scholars first.
Yeah, because it's officers around my school all the time, and I see them when I walk into school, and we would have like 2-minute talks and conversations about nothing. I have officers that when I'm walking up the street to school, then they're, oh, hey, LaQuinton, and would just talk to me about random stuff, like how you doing in school and stuff like that. So yeah, I put my trust in police officers, yeah.
I also trust the police officers.
I'm sorry, I don't know if everyone heard. Can you, Cynthia, can you repeat? I don't know if everyone heard.
I said yes, I also trust the police officers.
Mm-hmm.
Well, most of the time when I see on TV, I see police officers' perspective is bad, but from around my community, I actually like the police officers. They're really nice people. They love to help out, keep us out of trouble.
I agree. Like when you look, like lately, it been like a lot of bad things about like police officers in the news, and I feel like that's what like people think of instead of like, okay, because I feel like because all the bad things that happen, they just assume like all of them are the same. Like, oh, that one's racist, also they're all racist and stuff like that. But I don't feel like you can do that because you're not supposed to judge a person like before you meet them, and if their job is to serve and protect you, that's what like most of them are gonna do. Like it's a few bad ones, but I don't feel like that should be like applied to all police officers. I personally trust them, and I feel like if I ever like needed one, I'll be able to call them and they'll help me.
Thank you. Officers, briefly, concisely, can you share your experience out in the community? Do you sense that there's what's your level of trust do you sense from the community?
Well, the trust kind of comes individually because it's a lot of components. You have people that have had relatives that may have been falsely incarcerated, may be killed by the police or hurt, so they may deservedly so have reservations. But we have to put that aside and still do our job. Most of the time, the disrespect comes from people that are involved in negative things. But most of the time, people do respect us and they do want our help. So that's my experience.
I think when it comes to police officers, we have to give respect to get respect. So on different jobs that we go to, we have to give that amount of respect for us to get the more positive outcome. In my experience as being a police officer, of course I've run upon people that are not as receptive to me because of my uniform, but they don't know my background, like Officer Samaras was saying. They don't know where I came from. I probably had the same experience as some of you guys. In fact, I think I know I have. But as long as if you come correct, you'll get a positive outcome. And for the most part, I've sensed trust in the community. Sometimes not so much, but for the most part I have, because of the way you come off.
So yeah, I agree with the officers. I think a lot of times what happens is that we have good people, like this room right here. We want to do good. We want to continue to make our city look good. So I think it's just sometimes we feel as though that negative aspect of the neighborhood kind of brings our back, where we feel like we can't maybe help, or we feel as though there might be repercussions if we help. So I think generally we have to still continue to try to help, even though we feel is that negative aspect. We just got to let them know that if we bond together, to try to like let them know we're not going to sit down. We're this killing, these, you know, robberies, carjackings, whatever. You know, we have to work as a community to look out for each other. And I think in an aspect, maybe then they'll start to back off. You know, it's little steps. And I think, you know, it starts as little steps. And things like this of us getting together, that sort of helps, you know? So us talking to you guys, you're gonna take this back with your friends, right? And be like, hey, we were hanging out with them. They're pretty cool. You know what I mean? And sometimes it's just that little thing, it starts to domino effect. So that's how I think. Oh yeah, and the community does wanna help. They do wanna help.
They do, actually, they do. As a whole, yeah, I do trust the community. All of us do. We all do. You're always going to have the third of the population of an area just be the troublemakers, you know, and that's how it goes. And sometimes, you know, the rest of the community, sometimes it's hard for them to show their appreciation sometimes, you know, because they, here, let me just put it this way real quick. The past about 3 years, it was kind of rocky as far as the relationship between the police and the community. And it was frustrating because police built up a relationship and we saw it being chipped away. Now, people would show us appreciation, but it would have to be on the sly. And they had to look over the shoulder, then they come up and they talk out of the side of their mouth. And they say, you know, we really appreciate what you're doing. Just hang in there, it'll get better. And these were ordinary citizens. You know, we didn't like the fact that they had to say it on the sly. We would like them to show other people that they do appreciate us. You know, it's nice that they're in our corner, but they're not showing everyone else that you know, that it's okay to vocally be appreciative of us.
Thank you. Is it okay if I ask anyone to have a question? Okay, well, we need to wrap it up, but if someone had one question, anyone would have a question they'd like to ask the scholars or the police officers. It's fine. It's fine.
Ideas of how we can work together.
In conclusion, from
She fed 100 police officers last year. Also 100 nurses, Hamilton Fire Department. This is like second to none to her. She wants to be a nurse to children, firstborn children. But I've been trying to get her to be a police officer. I always wanted to be a police officer. I just didn't stay the course, considering how I grew up. And like the officer there mentioned that the gangs were in our neighborhoods and stuff. And they also tried to recruit me, so I got my book back. But I wasn't going. I wasn't going with them. So I'm trying to keep she's on the straight and narrow. In fact, all my children on the straight and narrow. So I want to ask you, Miss Cynthia, if you decide not to be a nurse, would you become one?
That's one of my questions, actually. I didn't get to, but would you become a police officer, or either one of you?
I don't know. I wouldn't like exactly become a police officer, but I would be like something regarding that field. So like an investigator or something like that.
Would either one of you guys become a police officer? Consider?
That's a plan B. Because I have, like, I believe that almost every little kid has the desire to become either a firefighter or a police officer. I've dreamed about it, actually, multiple times. It's creepy. But shall my original plan, my plan A, not go how I think it should, yes, I actually would enjoy to become a police officer. I like, not so much as how it sounds, but I like how it sounds. It sounds like a position that I'd take.
Yeah. Like look Quentin when I was like in kindergarten, I really wanted to be a police officer. And I feel like it would not only be fun, but like I would help a lot of people, you know. Just like help more people get off the streets, you know, help the community more. Because I didn't have a lot of bad experiences as of now, but like, you know, just help all those people who have a bad perspective about them, maybe change their perspectives, maybe. So yeah, I would become a police officer, maybe.
I don't want to become a police officer. It's not like because like nothing wrong. Like they were saying, like when you were little, like you like dreamed to be stuff. I wanted to be like a lawyer, a doctor, a teacher, a police officer, like all in one. But like now, I don't like see that being in my future. I like know what I want to do. I want to open a restaurant. And I don't feel like being a police officer like can fit into that.
It'll kind of get in the way, huh? Okay. Well, we want to thank Shalom.
Yes, I have a question for the police officers. Sorry. So I remember the question that you asked about like, would you trust a police officer? Like, would you go to them? But I think Jessica, you were saying that you never, like, when you were young, you didn't really have an encounter with police officers. So like, how would you like, for people who haven't really had an encounter with police officers to know that they can like trust them? Like, you may see them like because of the news and the way the news depicts certain people and like police officers. Like, how would the police officers get to know kids, but without because they're in trouble, but because you want to connect to them, things like that.
So how would, your question is, how would you connect with a police officer?
How would a police officer connect with the kids, but not because they're doing something wrong, just because you want to say counsel them, because you never,
Okay.
what's it called, like counsel them because you were doing anything wrong. So like, how would you?
Well, I mean, I think we connect with children all the time. When we answer our calls, I know I do. I know these police officers do too, but yeah, we get involved. You want to answer it? Yeah, I'm going to let this officer answer the question.
No, I was just going to say that I'm an officer-friendly officer, so I go to different schools and talk to children about staying out of gangs and safety and things like that, and a great program as well. So it's different avenues that can be taken.
And I think earlier I touched on it where, you know how like if all of the kids are just like at school sometimes, and if you're just rolling by a bus stop, you could be like, hey guys, and you know they'll just say, hey officer, what's up? I'm like, okay, where are you guys heading? They'll be like home or whatever. Like even the littlest thing of just addressing them, even like sometimes if you're driving by and you're stopped at whatever, or you're at like Dunkin' Donuts, and your partner's in Dunkin' Donuts and you're waiting outside and you see a group of kids, you're like, hey guys, what you doing? You know, just those little encounters may seem nothing, but like I think they always, anytime you talk to anyone in the community and we're in uniform, it's something. You know what I mean? That's why I always say, I always try to always talk. Anytime I go anywhere, I'm always like, oh, I'm gonna talk to 3 people today. You know what I mean? Put that in my head, even if it's like no job related stuff. And even every job we answer, we're still talking to everybody. You know, so we're always trying to be social with everybody. And I think everyone here, all 4 of us are pretty social, and you know, they're, you know, how we try to be in contact with everybody in the community. Kids, grandmas. I love talking to kids and grandmas. They're my favorite.
Yeah, we also have school officers too. So I used to be one in a district further south of here, and I enjoyed it. And I encountered children, the high school kids, and tried to keep them on the straight and narrow, give them advice. I was a listening ear.
All right. Thank you so very much. Thank you. We're going to conclude here, and we like to close out by having each one of you give one word on this experience regarding bridging the gap between police and the community.
Actually, fruitful.
I just think one word I would say would be understanding. So like understanding of everyone's situation. Like I said before, we're all different, but at the same time, I think you touched upon it, where we're all the same, right? We're all here together. We all want to work as a good community, but we all come from different backgrounds, so we all try to get an understanding. So it's understanding each other.
Empowering.
Invigorating.
Hopeful.
Open-minded.
Passion, because of course we got to speak to them, and they obviously showed their passion for this community.
I'm actually, for today and for them coming out, I'm actually grateful and thankful.
Awesome. Thank you so very much. Thank you.